All right, I think that we're all set to go. So welcome to Standard Technology for All Students, University of Ontario Institute of Technology's Technology TELE laptop tablet program presentation. It's quite a mouthful. Before I introduce the speakers, I just want to remind everyone to put your phones on vibrate or on silence. And without further ado, allow me to introduce Reem and Bill Muirhead from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology. Reem is the manager of Technology Enriched Learning Environment, and Bill is Associate Provost of Academic and IT. So, welcome.
Thank you. So, welcome everyone. I'm sorry we're late. You know, when in doubt, you have a presentation, there's always going to be a problem. So, we learned that where we are, of course, and so it's sort of not surprising, but so on behalf of everyone, we apologize. So, thank you for being here. As I was introduced, I'm the Associate Provost Academic, and as one of the many responsibilities I have responsibility for IT, and I'm here with Reem, who is our manager of
Technology Enriched Learning Environment.
Technology Enriched Learning Environment. So our TELE program, or Technology Enriched Learning Environment, is the latest acronym for what we really started out as a new university in Oshawa, Ontario, for those of you who don't know. We were created in, I have to be in front of here. We were created in 2000, well, the bill was passed in 2002. We opened our doors in 2003. So we are a publicly funded university, and we were the first one in 40 years. Now, what made us unusual was that we were actually created in Ontario during the end of the Harris era. But we were also created with a very specific mandate. So unlike other universities whose charters were to be a university, those that were quite old, we had very specific mandates. The first one was that we were to be research intensive and teaching intensive, and it was actually written in the Act, which means that we couldn't sort of say, well, we would be one thing or another. We had to try to do it one time. And the second one was that we would be at the vanguard of use of IT for teaching, learning, and research at UOIT. So in 2002, when we were first beginning to organize the university, remember there were no students, there was no faculty association, and it was really cheap parking. It was, for an administrator, the very best of times, and there were no students. I can tell you that that 1 year is what I will always remember as quite a fascinating time as an administrator. It just seemed to fly by. But one of the things we did was, as a new university, we had to build every building from scratch. And in 2002, we began to think about what that would look like. And so one of the things that we decided very early on is that we would provide every student at UOIT with a mobile device, a laptop computer. Now, there were lots of laptop programs in those days, and very few survive. And so one of the value propositions was we would give every student a laptop, or we would lease every student a laptop. Now, that was fairly innovative in 2002. But when we opened, of course, it was not just enough to provide hardware, because hardware, we realized, would be commoditized value at some point. Instead, we understood that a laptop or a computer with no software is basically just a boat anchor. And so one of the things that made our program different, and one of the programs that continues to make it different, is that we also provide all of the software identified by the faculty for teaching, learning, and research. And so what does that mean? Well, that means in many respects that we have 300 pieces of software that we, go back a bit, we have 300 pieces of software that we provide students. So now you have to think about the value proposition of what we do. We have a laptop, which is a Lenovo standard laptop, and Reem will talk about that, which we lease to students for each year of their 4 years of undergraduate study. We purchase or license for students up to 300 pieces of software, and many of the software packages that one would find in most universities in computer labs. We have no real computer labs. We have a few in engineering where it's very specialized equipment, but it tends to be a computer lab with very specific research equipment or demonstration equipment. But we have no computer lab. So everything that you would find from SPSS to CAD/CAM and all of the plethora of software are loaded on students' machines, anywhere, anytime, and they had full administrative access. So what that allowed us to do is have a building that would look like this, in a classroom like this, where we would have network drops at every seat, we would have redundant high-speed wireless, and students would be able to work anywhere, anytime on technology that would not normally be found even in some computer labs in Ontario. And so what does that mean? It means that I currently administer or am responsible for 10,000 laptops every year. 300 programs in excess of 6 figures, 7 figures that I purchase for students who usually are walking around with software from anywhere from 10 to well over $100,000 of software on the machines, because some of the very specialized software that we use in engineering, which is not available to the general public, but is only available to very high-end computer and engineering firms, which we've managed to have some arrangements with. So what does that mean? It means that for our faculties that you see on the right-hand side of the screen, that our students have a state-of-the-art technology environment, state-of-the-art mobile environment. And what is, and if you think about that, it means that every 2 years they get a new computer. So they never work on technology that's more than 24 months old. We have a very aggressive evergreening program for our infrastructure. And of course, we take every computer back once a year. You can imagine what that's like, 10,000 laptops, which I'm reliably told that if you pile, one on top of each other would be as high as the Eiffel Tower. And I went, no, that's not true, but I did have someone smarter than me that explained that in fact it would be true. You piled all of our laptops one on top of each other. So we manage that on a yearly basis, take them in, clean them, because they are students, we have to take the beer and whatever off the computer. We completely re-image the computer, we back the computers up, and we put them back. I know, you wouldn't think that it would be that tall for the Eiffel Tower, but 10,000 of them tend to make it that tall. And of course, it's not inexpensive. Our students pay for this. So when you hear about ancillary fees in Ontario, let me just be upfront. It's a truth-telling session. Our students pay anywhere from $1,100 to $1,250 a year for this over their 4 years. So each year they pay that. In addition, they get end-to-end support. If they drop the machine, they will never be without a machine for you. In 1 hour, they will have a new machine that they will be loaned until they can do that. So pretty aggressive build for us. And so, as I've said before, our key differentiator is our technology that can be used anywhere, anytime. One of the other aspects of UOIT is that because we're in Oshawa, of course, most of our students are commuter students. So when you actually visit the campus or watch people on the trains, if you're in Toronto and you're on a GO train and someone's using a computer, I bet you it's one of our students, because that's where they work, because they commute by train or commute by bus. They also can work anywhere, so you'll see them, they're on the floor, they're in the library, they're outside. We twisted all of our wireless connections so that when the weather is nice, like it was yesterday and early this morning, students are working anywhere across campus, and because they have young eyes, they seem to be able to work on computers in the sun. I don't know how, but they can, and it's quite wonderful. So why did we do this? What's the big deal? Because there aren't a lot of schools that do this anymore. Why do we do this? Well, I've talked about the software and I've talked about the 300 programs that we can buy. We've calculated, we save roughly $30 million a year between what students would pay for at the retail or educational level and what we can do when we negotiate with some of our closest friends like Adobe, where we say, gee, it's tough enough buying from them, but when you're buying 10,000 licenses, so it changes the conversation a little bit. Changes the conversation when you work with Microsoft and others, that when you're buying in such volume, that suddenly some of the licensing issues that I know you all deal with disappear. Standard hardware. Those of you who are in classrooms or support students in classrooms or support faculty understand that when you walk into most lectures at university, you see a plethora of computers. And so at least 10 minutes of every lecture is, I can't connect. I sent you the file, but I can't understand why you can't reach that version. You told me to do this in this software, but I don't see that because I'm on 2 versions earlier, or they've changed this, or what have you. And so lectures turn into IT sessions and IT support sessions. By having standard software, standard hardware, you avoid all of those issues. But now let's talk support. Any of you who run support desks on campuses will understand that half of your time is about students coming in and having very strange problems with their computers, and you're trying to diagnose them. Or if you're a faculty member, you know that often what you will have is, I did the work, and it's the sort of modern, I dog ate my homework, but I dropped my computer won't boot, I had it on my USB key, but it won't work, welcome to the beginning of this session, and all kinds of other things, or it's in the cloud, but I don't know why I can't find it. If you have standard services, standard hardware, standard support, you avoid all those issues. So 2 years ago, I think we bought some computers from a large company that makes computers that are all black, right? We found that they're brand new. We unpacked them, we distributed them to students, and guess what? There was a flaw, and the hard drives were giving us some problems. And we had to replace hard drives, so we replaced 1,500 hard drives. Now, we did that in 2 days. Easy, because you swap them in, it's no problem, we get the stock in, we're able to do that. We had problems with wrist rests 1 year, again, 2 days, we were able to solve the problems. Students were not inconvenienced. Support for us means that if a student comes in and we're having an exam and we're doing an online exam, you don't have to worry about, are some more equal than others? Everyone is equal, so it's equally supported across campus. So the value proposition for us, we think, speaks for itself and takes the responsibility out of the hands of faculty and places it in the hands of really creative IT departments to support our students. So as I said, 300 software titles. Now, here's the problem. If you have that, because you have a variety of computers, because you're keeping them for 2 years, and there's a variety of models that we actually distribute across the campus, we have up to 50 images that we have to prepare every year, test for new equipment, etc. We have course-specific software, and what we do is we go out to every faculty on campus, and for every faculty member and say, you're teaching X course, what do you need in the way of software? And why do you need it? And part of my job, and because IT and as Associate Provost Academic, I'm responsible for all undergraduate students at the university, I can begin to ask questions that some CIOs perhaps have some difficulty asking, which is, so why do you want this software? Are you really going to use SPSS in that course? Or do you just really want to introduce that? And do you need that module that costs X amount of money? And so we have that course-specific software. And of course, we integrate all of our software and hardware into everything that we do. So it's been a long time since I've seen paper copies of most assignments at the university. We have a large number of students who have a lot of time spent in industrial settings. And so you will find that students will be working anywhere, anytime. And of course, I apologize if you've heard me speak before, because it's such a great story, because it was a story that had a family connection. So my wife also teaches at the university, and I remember one day she came home and said, I think we have a problem. And of course, I paid very close attention. I said, oh, what's the reason of technology? What's the problem? I will solve it for you right away. She said, well, I was teaching a class today, and it was a class of 175. And I was handing back assignments because some of the work that was being done, because she teaches in nutrition and health, it was actually a physical aspect of this that they had to assign. She was handing back the work to students. And so she handed back, she said, okay, now group 12 or whatever it was here. You've done really well. This is great. This is what you've really aced this assignment, can you all come down? So the one person came down, took the piece of paper, and she said, that's great, now there are 5 people in this group, where's the rest? Then this wonderfully honest student said, I don't know where they are. Now, think of yourself as a faculty member. Now you're starting to go, I wonder what's going on here. So, like, what do they look like? I'll call them down. Maybe they're shy. Well, actually, I have no idea what they look like. Well, now as a faculty member, you're really getting worried, right? Like, great assignment, what the heck's going on? Haven't seen these people, it's a group assignment, what the hell? And so she said, I don't know what to do. I said, well, what did you do? She said, well, I asked the person, I didn't get really, the student, I didn't really get an answer. I'm going to have to deal with it in class tomorrow or something. So I said, oh, okay, well, let's just find out, because one of the other aspects of being the associate provost is I get to deal with academic and non-academic issues, the people that write the letters and do the investigations. So I said, okay, before we panic, let's just go back. And so she went back to class the next day and said, okay, now this person in group 12, I want that down here now. One of those sort of typical sort of faculty kind of sounds and voice. Well, they all came down. She said, so, do you know? Well, how did you do this? Well, of course, it was one of those wonderful examples. She said, well, I want to see all the notes. They showed all the notes, they showed all the research, they showed what they'd done, and they showed all kinds of weblogs and things that my wife knew some things about and asked me to sort of understand what was going on. Of course, these students had collaborated. They had done the work, but they'd never met each other because everything was done online. And why was it done online? Because they were commuters, because they were working, and because they had a standard technology base to work from. And that cannot be overestimated. And so we talk about sort of the commercialization of the enterprise or the consumer of the enterprise. And so you think about that, that's true, but it only works if you have seamless integration across the enterprise with a bring your own device. We solve that by saying, no, we want to think about that differently. So what are the principles of the program that is a large program and has really been the differentiator? And I should say one thing before Reem gets up, because she can talk about some of the technology. We charge students a lot of money for this. And many universities, and I've spoken to many of my counterparts that say, but that's a lot of money, right? That's anywhere from $1,000 to $1,300 or $1,400. You've been able to reduce the fees in recent years. It's a lot of money for students. Don't you find that a problem? Well, it's actually a really good question. And what I would say to you about that is, in 2003, we had 900 students. Today, we have 10,000 students. In 2003, we had no graduate programs. Today, we have 23 with 750 graduate students and growing. More if the government would let us grow faster. So these extra charges that we're sometimes afraid to actually finance IT around have not been a problem for us, and I don't think would be a problem for you. So these are the principles that the program runs on. And so that's the very high level work that's done at UOIT. And the benefits that we see for learning, the benefits we see for the university, because we've not had to build labs on some of the other infrastructure, but we've had to do some other things. And this is where Reem will talk about some of the technologies that we use and some of the technologies that we deploy at the university. So if there's a really deep technology question, ask Reem. If it's a policy question or academic question, ask me. We've decided that we can divide that quite well because we have different expertise. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to turn my mic off so you don't get any feedback, and I'll be back in a minute to answer questions.
Okay. As Bill has mentioned, we have standard hardware across the university, but because we have different needs and different requirements for different programs, here, we have different needs and different requirements for the programs. We have also to get them the machine that will work for their program. So for example, engineering will be different than social science and humanities, and we found that Forensic science is different because for forensic science, for example, they need a chart, they need a tablet to be able to draw the crime scene on it, and they need to take notes. So the models that we have for our students are the performance model, which is the the engineering, the science, and nuclear engineering students, where they need a high performance machine that can do what they need. They are not at any time crippled by a hardware that's not able to do what they need. And for the standard machine, which is for social science, for some business programs, we don't need to overspec the machines for them. We don't need to give them a more expensive machine when what a standard machine can do for them. The edge machine is for specific program, which is education. They don't need higher end machine. They are only a 1-year program, or at least was till maybe next year. And they thought that they need a smaller machine that they can take to schools. So we give them the edge. And for the forensic science, they get the tablet. So far, what we've done is, once we go out to the faculties and get the software needs, we test the software on the laptops, and we spec the laptops for the software. Our main concern is that the software can run, the software is compatible with the machine, and it is compatible with each other. No. So part of the services that myself and another manager deal with are centralized distribution. So we see around 9,000 to 10,000 students every year. We touch around more than 10,000 laptops every year. As Bill has mentioned, we have a very aggressive refresh cycle. So we give the students new machines in year one. They are pre-imaged, they have the software that they need on them, they plug their machines, log on, and they're off doing their work. A couple of softwares might not be on the machines, so we have a centralized distribution software system, which they can, based on their student access and which courses they're registered in, just log on, they will find in their portal the software that they can download. So the 10,000 machines, first year and third year get new laptops. So we give them the laptop with the software. Second and fourth year, they come to us and we refresh their software. So they hand the laptop in 24 to 48 hours, we re-image all the machines and give them back. So we have a big distribution center with like 20 distribution assistants trying to help the students out, giving them orientation on the hardware, some orientation around the software. So we try to help the students be ready for the start of the year. I mentioned the software deployment system. We currently are using Landesk for our software deployment system. What we do after we negotiate with the vendors, get the software on site, we package the software and have it on Landesk. So once the students log on to their machine, they will see all the software that they will need. We, as again Bill mentioned, we have service desk to help the students. The service desk, we've seen that it might be the longest hours in Ontario. They're available for the students. A student comes to the service desk if they cannot resolve the issue within 10 to 20 minutes, even less, they have a loaner ready for the student. They give them the loaner that has the software that they need. So there are no excuses about my machine died on me or anything like that, because they get the hardware with the software and they can continue with whatever they need, which is our loaner service. Repair services, we have on campus certified technicians. So when there's a hardware issue, we fix the machine on campus. We don't need to send it somewhere and try to arrange when it will be back. Sorry, it's not back yet. We don't know when it's back. we have full control on repair services. Like Bill mentioned, when we needed to replace hard drives, that they were there, they know what they're doing. They know which screws to unscrew and plug the hard drive. There's no downtime, at least within our repair services, and they get the machines out to the students. Exam support, we realized a couple of years ago that we got complaints from exams, and they called the service desk with students frantic in an exam, not able to do what they need, whether the exam is online on our Blackboard system or whether they're using one of the specific software that's on the specialized software that's on their machines. So we launched the exam support model to see if it's in demand, and it is heavily used now. My technicians, my team will be in the room with learners. So if a student is sitting there in the exam, not able to do the exam, on the fly, we have another machine ready for them to continue with the exam. So there's no downtime for the student, no stress for the student, because we're ready for them over there. Another team I have is the faculty and student support. So a faculty member wants to try a piece of software. We don't know if it will work with our infrastructure. We don't know if we'll be able to get it on our laptops. So technicians are working very closely with the faculty to test the software and make sure that it's available for them, and make sure it fits with our environment and fits with other 50 other titles on the machine, and they're not fighting with each other for resources. And for the student support, again, because we're testing the software, our images, before we roll them out, are tested for like 2 months. Internal testing, and then testing with the faculty, and then testing with the students. We want to make sure that they get a fully functional piece of equipment with the software on it. That's our central storage at our high time. We won't tell you the location because it has tons of laptops over there. It's under the ground, so don't try. We get the machines. We get them latest possible time, so they are the newest machines available in the market. We put them in our inventory. We asset tag them. We arrange them in the central storage, and then have them ready and imaged for the students. That's our imaging system, imaging room. So we are able to image. Last number I heard was around 800 machines a day. So what we do is start the session, we connect all the machines, we start the sessions, just download the images on the machines and turn them around. So our turnaround is just amazing. We hire students, and that's the best thing that we could do, because they are very excited about being part of the whole system that gives them the laptop. So it's not as neat as this all the time, but it was a good picture. So one of our key attributes is that it's a mandate for all the students, for all undergrad students. Some students don't like that because it is, why should I have this thing when I can use my other red thing? But after a couple of months within our environment, they understand the value that we're offering. The hardware, again, is refreshed every 2 years, software is refreshed every year, and when the student graduates, they're able to buy out the laptop for $1. The $1 is only for the exchange of ownership. We need to own the machines to have the software on them. So we exchange the ownership for $1 at the end of the year, and that's the least amount of money that we can do. If we could do 1 cent, we could have done it. We're trying to minimize the number of images and use Landesk more, not to build as many images, but we try to make it easy for the students. We don't want them to download 5 gig piece of software and rely on the infrastructure. We have a very good infrastructure, but still, we have impatient students. So we try to put as many software on the image without having 200 images. That's our environment. Happy people. We are really in my team and all around IT, very passionate about helping the students. We are proud of them. We are proud to see how they make use of the technology. As Bill said, sitting all around the campus, doing their work, there's no stop for them. And they are ready for the market. And how many times I've heard the comments from big companies that when you send students for co-op, they are the best students that I get. They know what they're doing. They're trained on the software that we have for the last 3-4 years. And they know we don't need to train them for a couple of months before they can do the work. They're just ready for the market and have very high advantage when it comes to interviews. So we're there.
So that's all the, So that's all the good news. So now here's the challenge, and here's where we find ourselves today. And for those of you, you can imagine the challenge that I now face. And I'm going to be off camera, but it's probably just as easy the way the microphones don't feedback. So we have a really successful program. We have a program that's made a difference for learning. We have a program that is efficient. It runs on the dollars that students provide us. It's not a large extra expense when all you have to do is go and buy a bunch of textbooks and realize what students are paying. So basically it's the textbook cost a year for most students to get this kind of technology service. So that's all the good news story, and we want to leave you with that, but here's the challenges that I face. Today, I'm providing students with a black Lenovo computer, okay, powerful computer with all the support necessary in a world that's changing. And what I'm often asked is, so that's great, when are you going to give us tablets? And we go, well, now let me compare the price of a volume purchase for Lenovo computers and a really tricked out tablet. The difference is $100 a year. Because that's the kind of purchasing power when you can buy so many. Then you get the, when are we going to get tablets? Because we think they really look good. And by the way, we don't understand why a tablet won't run SPSS and other sort of highly intensive computational software. Like, just fix that, Bill. I mean, you're the CIO guy. Just go and do that. Get beat up on those manufacturers. You know, how do you answer those questions when it comes from the very top of your organization? And as we know, students are price conscious, and so while we've been able to manage the cost, what we've not been able to do is to provide a transition path from the value of centralized purchasing and support to a more open environment that you would find on many of your own campuses. So I don't know how to do that. It is one of the great conundrums of the job that I have working with the senior academic team to understand that critical path. So if you have ideas, first of all, if there are any questions about what we do and why we do it, or if you have any ideas how to solve the problem that I have, because I'm asked weekly by the president, when are you going to, it would be my whole reason for coming to Canada, perfect, right? So, yeah.
Bill and Reem, thanks very much for your presentation. Technically, thank you. I've spoken to you guys before. It's awesome. I have so many questions. The first one is, so you guys must run some engineering applications like SolidWorks or CAD/CAM.
Yep.
So I'm curious about, we're looking at Lenovo as well as a piece, as a preferred PC. We also run a laptop program, although not exactly like UOIT, but we're looking at Lenovo. that Lenovo model only has the MBS graphics card. It's not a workstation class graphics card. So I'm interested if you have any student data which has said to you that students are generally satisfied with that computer. Because I do have some data that says that we looked at students who had like 13-inch MacBook Pros as opposed to 15-inch MacBook Pros who were running boot camp and the Autodesk applications. And I found like actually some statistically significant data that said that the students who were running 15-inch MacBook Pros with a better graphics card were happier with those machines versus, you know, the less powerful machine. Do you find the T series that's good enough for you guys?
The T series we currently have the 15-inch i7 with the integrated graphics, and they're doing well. Like, if you do statistics for a student who has 15-inch versus 13-inch or faster i7 versus i5, of course, the one that has the higher end machine will be more satisfied. But what we also look at is performance for what they need. Does the 30 seconds really matter? Or do they want to pay the extra $200? So we try to find the most optimum machine for what they do. Can we give them a workstation versus a T-Series? Of course. But will they want to carry around a big desktop with them around
There's a W series model that has a quadro graphics card. It's not that much, it's not that much different in size. Well, yeah, it is.
And we have seen also that the students want mobility, and the W series were too big. Our students were satisfied with the T series.
Okay, so the students said too big.
Yeah.
And actually, when it comes to size, it's quite fascinating because we hear from how do you feel my pain? Half the students want something that's light with a 13-inch screen, and half the students want a 15-inch screen because when they're not studying, they're all watching movies and they want the 15-inch. And I have tried to reduce screen size to save money. And every time I have tried, I've spent years saying, yeah, but it's the same machine. No, it's not. It's a different size. And then you try to have a technology discussion with them, and I've just given up, and they all get 15-inch.
Have you looked at the student ownership-based model?
We have looked at the student ownership model, and here's the problem that we have with the student ownership model. We purchase and license software as an institution, and our commitment to the software vendors is that we are loading the software on machines that we own. Therefore, we are responsible for the software. Therefore, we're buying not as on educational pricing, we're coming in as a volume discount purchaser. And the cost savings, as I said, was around $30 million. Much of the software that we have in very specialized programs would not be available to students at all because it was being owned on a student machine. And so the student ownership against the software acquisition is where we get into the problem. So we've looked at it, but we can't go there.
Sorry, I just want to get to we only have about a minute left.
We can continue.
But we can continue this.
Well, for the benefit of the group, we have a model like that, and we are allowed to install the software on student computers. So I'd like to know what vendors don't allow you to install software.
We're talking NX. We're talking the software that is not available for commercial use or not available for users. It's big entities who are interested in having their software on our machines to have the students ready to graduate. And these are the ones that you can't even buy them as a user.
And let me answer the questions that are on the screen.
Perfect.
So first of all, our loaners, with loaners, are you also restoring user files? So where there is a problem and we've loaned a student a computer, we will not necessarily transfer files to the loaner machine. However, when the student comes back, right, of having a loaner for a couple of days, we've restored the original machine, and hopefully they have backed up their files, try to teach them that, and if there's been anything done on the machine that is a loaner, we will actually transfer that data across. But that's the only data we transfer across. And is exam support for all exams or on a per request basis? We will support any exam where we have a request, Where we don't have a request, we're not going to provide support. So if we have a typical Scantron kind of multiple choice exam where there is no technology support, I'm not putting a technology person in the room. But where the computers are being used for assessment, we will have learners and we will have technicians in the room. And we require that our faculty book that at least 7 days in advance. We can support many, I don't want to say hundreds, because let's be truth-telling, but we are able to support or bring in temporary staff to support all of the demand that we've had for people using computers during assessment, either as midterm or final exams.
So the licensing issues, once it's transferred to the student from dollar, how do you deal with moving the software that you bought?
We actually don't move, so when a student buys out the computer upon graduation, we give them the operating system.
That came with the machine.
So you do a refresh?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
oh, so
They
you
bring in the
machine
machine,
back in.
Yeah, so the machine comes back, wipe the machine, give them the operating system.
And give them up.
Yeah,
All right, we gotta cut this session short, but thank you so much for coming.
thank you. And if you have questions, we can continue the discussion later. Thank you.